Okay, welcome back. This time, Chapter 5, Port Scanning. Port scanning discovers whether the party being scanned is actually available, right? The typical analogy is a person walking down the street and turning the doorknob of every house along the way, right? And they note whether the door is open or not, right? Entering the house is a crime in most parts of the world, just as entering a computer. But is it a crime just to see if the door is open, right? So these are some of the objectives that we will go through today. Port scanning then helps you answer the questions about open logical ports and services by the scan of IP addresses. The open ports, closed ports, filtered ports are types that you might find, right? An open port allows access. This is a logical port, and it allows access to applications and can be a vulnerability to an attack, right? So there are many tools used to find open ports, right? And after a hacker discovers an open service, finding a vulnerability or an exploit is not that difficult, especially when systems are out of date or unpatched, for example. So here's just a note of caution, please. In the United States, no federal law exists to ban port scanning. I'm not sure about elsewhere. It's hard enough to keep track of this country, right? However, while not explicitly illegal here, port and vulnerability scanning without permission can get you into trouble, right? There are civil lawsuits, for example. The owner of a scan system can sue the person who performed the scan. So just be aware of that before you would do anything. Now, port and take responsibility for your own actions. Now, port scanning programs, they report again on open ports, right, which allow access to applications. That's good. We want access to applications, but they can also build vulnerability attack. Now, a closed port doesn't allow access to an entry or a service, and a filtered port might indicate that a firewall is being used to allow specific traffic into or out of the network. And during your reconnaissance or footprinting, which we learned in Chapter 4, you would then take a few more steps to consider the firewall aspect of it. Now, one of the tools used is Nmap. Nmap stands for Network Mapper. It is the most popular network discovery and port scanner in history, right? And it's free, yay, helps to its popularity, and it's open source. It's an open source application. So it's used by systems administrators, good, developers, good, and network engineers for security auditing, yay, and for local and remote networks. Now, there's some commonly hacked ports to be aware of. TCP port 21 is FTP, or File Transfer Protocol. TCP port 22 is Secure Shell. It's command line work. TCP port 23 is Telnet. TCP port 25 is for mail transfer, or SMTP. TCP and UDP ports, right? Those are those transportation ports, as they that tie to the DNS domain name system that we discussed last week. That's port 53, and then of course 443, which is TCP port for HTTP or HTTPS rather over SSL or TLS, or HTTP over port 80. Okay, so those are the most commonly hacked types of ports to be aware of. Okay, now the types of scans that you can do are many. One is a SYN scan. Remember, we talked in, I think it was back in week 1, about the three-way handshake. And so it's using that three-way handshake that computers have with each other, or client-server model, to figure out what's going on. So a SYN scan is a stealth scan, right? And a SYN scan, if the port of the SYN, so it's trying to synchronize. That's what SYN stands for, right? So your packet header is going to have, you're going to send a SYN packet with your IP address and the destination IP address. If the SYN packet is sent, if the port of the SYN packet that it's sent to is closed, the computer is going to respond with a reset and acknowledge, right, which is RST/ACK packet. And that's going to close the session you were trying to create. And this is done so a full TCP connection is never made and logged as a transaction. It's stealthy. It's hidden. And you as a hacker would want, you'd probably like a SYN scan because you're not getting logged. It's just, but you're noting which ports are closed, right? Which activity is closed or application. So a connect scan completes this three-way handshake versus the SYN scan, which ended with just the SYN being sent and the reset acknowledge coming back. The connect scan completes the three-way handshake, and this type of scan relies on the attacked computer's operating system. So similar to a SYN scan, except that it completes the three-way handshake, where the SYN scan only starts the three-way handshake, right? And this means that the attacked computer, or the computer that you're wanting to attack, most likely logs the connection. Be aware of that. Now, which you can use as a security tester, right? So you can do some of this and then go look in the SIM logs, for example, to assess the quality of the work. Now, a null scan is where the packet flags are all turned off, right? So a closed port is going to respond to a null scan with a reset packet. So if no packet is received, the best guess would be, if you send a null scan, that the port is open. Now, there's a Christmas scan, right? Because it lights up like a Christmas tree. It sends actually the FIN and two other flags. The urge flag and one other. It sends the push flag. The fin, it's on the side. The fin, push, and urgent flags are all sent. Right? How complicated is that? Finish, push to it, and then urgent. Right? And so closed ports respond to this type of packet with a reset packet. But also note that each operating system or network device may respond differently to Christmas attacks. So based on how they respond, it can reveal the information such as the operating system in addition to ports and more, right? Very interesting. So with an ACK scan, that's used to get past the firewall. So an ACK scan, besides the firewall, it's used to get past other filtering methods, right? So a filtering device is looking for the SYN pack. And so remember that this SYN, SYN-ACK, and ACK, that's a three-way handshake, is the normal process. And if the attacked port returns a reset packet, the packet filter was fooled and there is no packet filtering. That's good to know. Now, if you do a FIN scan, this is good because when the port is closed, it sends back a reset packet. And with the UDP scan, a closed port responds with the ICMP note port unreachable message, right? So a UDP scan, UDP packet is sent to the target computer, and if the port sends back the ICMP port unreachable message, the port is closed. As a final note, as you learned in Chapter 2, a computer that receives a SYN packet from a remote computer is going to respond again with that SYN acknowledge packet, the synchronized acknowledged packet, if the port is open. If the port is closed and you receive a SYN packet, then the computer is going to send back a reset acknowledge packet, determining whether the port is filtered is more complex, but there was an example there provided just a moment ago. Okay, so using port scanning tools. Make sure, here's a note, foot stomp. Always get permission from a company if you're going to perform an intensive scan on its network infrastructure. If your scan slows down the network traffic, a company might argue that a low-level denial of service attack was happening, which is illegal. Okay, be very careful. So port scanning tools, there are hundreds of them available. Not all of them are accurate. So frankly, you want to be familiar with a variety of tools. And you want to do not exclusively use only one tool, because there are a variety of tools, and because there are various levels of accuracy associated with them. Use more than one port scanning tool in your official functions as a port scanner, right? And some tools that you can use are Nmap, Nessus, OpenVAS, VAS. So for Nmap, right, this is the most popular port scanner, and it adds new features constantly, such as operating system detection, right? And so Nmap also uses a GUI interface, the graphical user interface, front end. That's called ZenMap, and it's really the standard for port scanning tools. Now, all we really have to do is type in the command in Nmap, say the IP address, 193.145.85.201. And this will scan common ports on the computer with this IP address. So attackers want to be hidden from a network and network devices or IDSs, right, that are out there that recognize pings or packets. So they really prefer to use stealth attacks, as I mentioned, like a SYN attack, right? A SYN scan. And they want to limit their scan speeds, right? An attacker could target only a few ports at a time, for example, to help with this approach. Now, Nmap is very popular. Here is a great video that I've used before. I love it. On your own time, if you're interested in using this very popular port scanning tool, there is a short 15-16 minute tutorial on that link. It's on YouTube. It's fabulous. I highly recommend it. Now, if you're into movies or you just want to make this real and interesting, more interesting, I recommend you go to this video link. It's on YouTube. You could just YouTube Matrix Reloaded is the movie, and Nmap. So you'll see a video, and I have the link here if you want to go to it. And there's a girl named Trinity, and she's in front of the computer terminal. And notice at the top of the screen it says that it's running Nmap, right? And what she does by running Nmap is she's discovering port 22 is open, which is secure shell. And so she runs an exploit, which was an actual bug in secure shell. So it's secure shell. I couldn't say it. And it's very interesting then. And that allowed her to change the root password. Once she changed the root password, then she was able to shut down the grid in the movie Matrix Reloaded. Fascinating, interesting. For those that haven't, so then there are other tools that can be used. Nessus and OpenVAS, right? Sometimes referred to as Greenbone Security Assistant, right? So there's a little bit in the book on this and enough on this slide. Just I want to update you for those that haven't had the IT Law and Ethics class yet. GPL stands for General Public License, and it's the most widespread of such licenses out there, right? And GPL, as it's usually shortened, right? But it's a public license. All right. Then we'll take a break here and come back with part 2 of 2 this week for chapter 5, conducting ping sweeps. See you in just a little bit.